And Susan, last show, did a great job of talking about a whole lot of things and I got to say things too, that are
I did a
really
great
helpful.
job of trying to answer your very good questions.
So Susan talked about inner strength and sovereignty, so did I, and heightened compassion, sensory perception and perspective, empathy, the ability to face intend suffering directly. How important, gosh, how important. And so, Susan, we're just going to keep going about why do mystics matter from your perspective?
Welcome to Mystic Revolution, expanding everyday experiences with Susana and Wendy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mystic Revolution. This is our second show, and we've been delving into the 7 reasons why Mystic Revolution is helpful and important for all of us. Why now? Why is it important? And our first thing we're talking about is why mystics matter.
Sure, yeah. So, as Wendy said, we touched on the importance of inner strength and sovereignty and how being on a mystic path really opens that up directly. And in the chaos and change of the world today, being able to tune into yourself and trust yourself and your own strength helps ease things and helps take the edge off of anxiety, of stress, and then also can help us open up to some of the deeper things, maybe the deeper sufferings that we haven't tended to, or that have kind of gotten in our way of feeling full on in ourselves, feeling happy and healthy in our own skin. And so the mystic path allows us to, see and sense more clearly what's going on within ourselves and others, and open into our own innate abilities to heal ourselves and others. And one of the things that both Wendy and I work with people on is learning to work with energy, learning to master your energy. And I have this thing that I like to say, but I think that learning to master your energy is one of the most radical, compassionate, powerful things that we can do for ourselves and others. Because when we start to understand how energy works within us and around us, we can have a hand in shaping it, shifting it, enhancing it, or releasing it to feel better within ourselves and to help others. I wish I could remember his name, but it was the idea that, like, in these uncertain, chaotic times, it's really important for people who are leading a movement or a business or want to help to be able to navigate uncertainty, to be able to still be strong and remain effective when things seem chaotic. And the mystic path, I think, is really, really supports that. I know for me, and Wendy, I totally want to hear your story on this, but it helped me take greater responsibility for myself, and even radical responsibility. I fully believe that, let's just take the idea of a relationship. Every person in a relationship is responsible for 100% of their half of the relationship. And when we aren't tending to our own stuff, we aren't showing up and taking responsibility for our part in that. And I think I can look at my own relationships in the past, can look at relationships between people and groups of people out in the world, and maybe see and sense where even just a slight more taking ownership for our part in things could totally change the game.
Yes.
And again, there's the game metaphor, but yeah, I know you know what I'm talking about, Wendy.
It's my favorite metaphor, I think, the game. So
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're gonna watch, if you guys are gonna play, if you guys are gonna play the game, then you're gonna hear the game metaphor.
Well, and yeah, go ahead.
The responsibility is huge, I think. I think it's usually important. Some of the thing about being mystic is owning that a lot of us who are mystics are healers and transformers in one way or another.
Yes.
And one of the main temptations of a healer is to be responsible for everything out there and not being responsible in here for us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pattern. Like changing that changes everything.
Absolutely. It gets back to the idea of walking your talk. I mean, that's kind of an overused phrase, but I didn't fully understand that until I saw that, my need to want to help other people was directly related to actually what I needed.
Yes.
And right, I mean, I think maybe a lot of people can relate to times in their lives when they wanted other people to validate or assure or give them something. And really, there are some things that we can only give ourselves. Now, I want to pause for a minute, because if you maybe didn't hear our last show, we really dove into suffering, and that suffering happens, chaos happens, it's real. And part of the mystic path is being able to look at it full on, be with it, to see the truth of it, to validate it. And that's so important. This is not saying everybody be responsible, and whatever, and don't mind all the trauma or all the suffering that's going on in the world.
It's not. Yeah,
it's not at all. It is deciding to look at it, to be with it, to weed through, right? Discern what is really yours to tend to, what is not, and then using your growing perception, your innate abilities, all the resources that you may not even fully realize you have to tend to yourself. And in that, you also are able to better tend to others. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think it's such a radical practice. It's radical, and it's compassionate for yourself and for others. And it really catalyzes transformations that can be really unexpected. I know one of the things that I've heard you say is that it can make things that seem impossible possible.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, and there's so many parts of what you just said that make things possible that weren't possible. And one of them, for me, was I was trying to carry everybody's backpack. I was trying to be responsible for everybody's stuff. And eventually, I was strong and capable, but eventually, like, it ground me down into the, down. Then I couldn't function, and I couldn't make the difference I wanted to make. Yeah. And so I started practicing this self-responsibility, and getting more disciplined about it. It's still challenging, but more disciplined about it. And I started to have the space and power to be able to actually help people quite a lot out of just self-care, out of self-responsibility, out of taking care of my, all the things, my body, my wellness, my finances, my, the basics of what it takes to be a human being. As I'm really responsible for that, then there's space made to be able to help out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I show them how it's done. Like, I believe we learn a lot. Monkeys see, monkey do, not just children. In our souls, we learn a lot. So, like, the more I'm self-caring, I'm showing how it's done to be well taken care of.
Truly. And just a little, I'm just gonna flag that, because I know later in another show, right, this relates to the importance of mystic community, and I know you've got a lot to say on that. But when we do these things, it just ripples out in ways that we can't even imagine. And I think the more I am able to look at myself first, the better. I mean, we're talking about mystic tools, what mystics can do. The more you take that radical responsibility, the better reader you are, the better healer you are, because you aren't getting your own stuff mixed up in your clients, in your client's energy, or what your client might be going through, or what other people you're helping might be going through. And I think that's really important. I mean, I feel like a lot of what we've noticed in the last, few years, is people doing a lot of projecting and deciding what other people are thinking and doing and how they are based upon whatever.
Our stories.
And our own stories, right? Rather than taking the time to really tune in and using heightened perception to see what's really going on. And that heightened perception only really works when you have that awareness of your own inner strength and the ability to take responsibility for what's yours and let the rest go. Yeah.
I would say, sorry.
No, please.
I would say it really helps to have what we practice. One of the things we practice is like spiritual perspective, or a neutral perspective, or a higher perspective. One of my friends say a God's eye view, like actually like seeing from a higher perspective, and and noticing, okay, this is the emotional perspective, this is the information from the body, this is the intellectual perspective, this is the information from the analyzer, this is the beliefs saying what their perspective, like just really being able to sort this out. We talked about this a bit last time, but to be able to be just like, all right, my emotions say this, I think I might have to punch him in the nose, but my spiritual perspective says, oh, look, I created this. or whatever.
Right. Well, and I think that's really important. And you said the word neutral, or viewing it from neutral, or a higher perspective. And some people have said, well, you can't view something as neutral. That means you aren't taking a side, or you aren't like taking a stand. And how I view what you just spoke to is, what we're really doing is we're going in and we're looking for clues. We're investigating. And in that investigation, in that ability to see things from a higher vantage point, or a lower vantage point, or from the right side or the left side, or from your side, or whatever, to be an objective observer, You gain
Yes.
more information that enables you to make clear decisions that may support a particular stance or may not, or may shift your mind, but you're looking at it. It's a practice of gathering clues, or like, as I like to talk about my clients, if we're going to go in, we're going to look at something real deep. We're going in, we're going to put on our headlamps, and we're like sort of spelunking down into the deep darkness of the cave.
Yeah.
And we're going to look at it like we're, explorers observing.
Yes, it's really good. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great way to talk about neutrality. We're exploring. We're scientists. We're soul scientists. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I love that, because it helps take a little bit, we're obviously living in a very science and data driven world, and that's so important. And so is the mysticism, so is humanism. And when you're able to sort of hold both, it's like you have the data, you gather the data, and then, like, in this soul, being a soul detective, or I can't remember the phrase you just used, but soul science, right? It can help fill in some missing parts and pieces, particularly, when you're looking at it you're looking at something as, how does it affect my world? How does it affect my family? How does it affect my community? Yes. And so they are not mutually exclusive by any means. In fact, I fully believe that if we were open to better integrating them and understanding them, like, we could be sort of busting out into the stratosphere. Yeah.
I kind of put this part of the conversation under, we can act and not react. It's not that we don't act into the world. It's not like we don't care about making a difference. It's not like we're not meaning to transform to be a more loving world or whatever. It's just that we can do it not by being dragged. We can do it by choosing powerfully.
Yeah.
And making choices that actually make a difference, not just our drama.
Right. And so choices goes to sort of the next point in this for me, which is clarity, greater clarity, and then greater freedom.
Yes. And I want to say hello to this after the break. Clarity and freedom.
Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Level up your life and raise your vibration with specialized Fibonacci tuning forks. Get your vibrational sound tools for your personal enhancement at energybodytuners.com.
Welcome back to Mystic Revolution. Susan and I have been having a great conversation about why mystics matter, and talking about our ability to see and hold and uplift the truth of ourselves and others, and how powerful it is as we learn to master our own energy. And then we're just saying we're going to talk about clarity and freedom. So, hooray! Susan, what do you want to say?
Well, I think when we're able to tune in and see the truth in ourselves and see the truth of others, it can be so freeing, right? Because we're sort of trained to make associations. Well, if someone shows up that way, that must mean this. If this happens, then this is what that means. And we create little prisons for ourselves, right? Or I'm not this way, so therefore that means. And so I'll just say, so much of my life I lived in a little prison of myself, or multiple little prisons of myself.
Yeah.
That I created. Some of them I created out of, trauma, and they helped me for a while, but then they no longer worked.
Yes.
And they no longer worked. And I was lucky to fall into or open into the mystic path, to be able to see more clearly, what was going on with that and how to break free. And so what I fully believe is that when we start to take greater ownership of the invisible parts of ourselves, whether it's our trauma or whether it's that we're really like highly clairvoyant, or whatever it is, when we start taking ownership of those parts of ourselves in the same way we do our physical bodies, our physical selves, we automatically move into experience a greater sense of wholeness. And I know this isn't any brain, earth-shattering news, but for me, embracing the mystic path helped me make sense of this, because I had been so separated. These two parts had been so separated for so long. And so, in the same way one might brush their teeth a few times a day, one might tend to their energy a few times a day. We've both have, shared practices in energetic hygiene, or in just and discernment, practices of discernment every single day, and how that really shifts the rhythm of a day, the vibration of the day, and it shifts how we view and engage with others. And it's like, in tending to these invisible parts of ourselves, it opens up a greater sense of expanse and clarity. And I'm going to jump back into something that you were talking about earlier, where, you were driven, I'll just say, to really try and help other people carry the burdens of other people, carry the feelings of other people, and all of that energy, all of that stuff being carried by your one little body, your one little heart. And where was the room for you?
No.
Where was the room for you? And we start looking at, like, okay, what's going on? How much of this is mine? How much of it isn't? How much of this energy or emotion is old and is no longer necessary? That's what I call taking ownership of these invisible parts. It creates a spaciousness then that we get to fill up with the truth of who we are. Not what people told us we should be, not what society says we should be, but tapping into the truth of our heart, of our soul, of our gut, and allowing it to have space in our body. So for a long time, I didn't do that. I mean, from when I was a child onward, how it manifested in my world is I had terrible eating disorder, where my body and my emotions and all of it were completely separate. I totally was disassociated. And the mystic path, even though I had specific therapies for eating disorders, the mystic path helped weave all the parts and pieces of me together in a way that I'm not sure any other way could have. And so it's like the path of stepping into who you truly are. And that just automatically eliminates the other stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Instead of fighting what doesn't work, just allowing what does work.
Right. allowing what does work, and being more clear on what is ours to tend to and what's not. And that's such a freeing experience. And it brings something that I know a lot of people struggle with, which is trust, right? How can I trust them? How can I trust that this is going to happen? And I know this isn't true for anyone, and I would never impose any like sort of ubiquitous idea, but I truly feel that in that owning of the invisible parts, in that tuning into and building that inner sovereignty and strength, that's where trust comes, and trust comes from within. And so you can trust yourself that you will never be in that kind of relationship again.
Yes.
You can trust yourself to make the right decisions for your children and your family, because that clarity is there. I don't know. What do you think? I've been talking a lot.
Well, I just want to highlight something that you said that was just so powerful. You'd named a few things, but basically I boiled it down to like allowing our truth to have space in our body. It's just so powerful, Susan.
Well, it isn't. It's a visceral thing, you know. I mean, I think I feel like we're so trained to be in our brains and our thinking brains, and here we are, and we're kind of like these heads that are detached from our bodies. And I'm so, you know, obviously there's a lot of great practices that are being even more and more promoted about connecting the mind, body, and spirit. But even with that, there's still a disconnect for a lot of people. And so what the mystic path has helped me do is make that connection with the body and understand that the body is a consciousness. It's not just our brain. It's not just the organ that's in our head. Our whole being, the whole system of who we are is consciousness. And that when we tend to it, again, the invisible parts of ourselves, we open it up in a way that is unbelievable. Can be unbelievable.
Yes. And I'll highlight another thing that you said that goes right here, which is that we really find the wholeness within. And I want to add, in our world and with our world, like there's just many layers, circles of wholeness that we can tune into to allow to be safe and comfortable and belong.
Yes. Right.
And our truth is held, you know, in our own bodies and then our own lives and our own world. And it's just a very powerful, I mean, I just really want to highlight this because it's so delicious and useful.
Well, I mean, I think having these kinds of conversations is so delicious and useful. And so I really want to appreciate you for that. And I think, oh my gosh, I think I just lost my train of thought. I was going to say something real good.
You're just going to say something great about.
Oh no, what I wanted to say was, you know, here we are, we're talking about mystic revolution, why mysticism matters and why it's important right now. And we have some things to share, and we will, and we have some practices and some tools, and we can share the ways that, you know, we found ourselves on this path. But the beauty of it is that in the simple turning inward to start tending to things, everybody's own unique path unfolds, right?
Yes.
That's why this isn't about you and I or any person who is a teacher or a leader saying this is the way and this is what you do. As you turn inward, it starts to unfold. The community, though, the community part of it, or having a teacher or someone who has maybe been engaged in this way a little bit longer, how that helps you is to give tools and insights about how one might, right, tend to something, or how one might access this part. And I think that's one of the reasons that we wanted to do these shows is to open the floor, open the playing field to all of that, and so that we can all share with each other and help each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I do look forward to us finding people like you who are listening, who want to engage in community and learn and support each other. So
Absolutely.
we'll continue to talk about that. Wonderful.
Yeah, we will. Well, thank
you,
you, Wendy. And so we are going to continue this conversation in another show. And Wendy has a lot of cool things to share. And so we'll sort of flip the table, and I'll be asking some questions, some really hard questions.
And that concludes this portion of Mystic Revolution. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to get notified of new content. Don't forget to like and share. Join the Mystic Revolution. Click on the link in the description to get more information, or visit themysticrevolution.com. Another creative art production by Retro Earth Studio.